Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Amy Campbell. And for the NBA Finals, we got what we expected unexpectedly.
Yeah, apparently this was our destiny all along, it seems. For the fourth straight year, it's the Warriors versus the Cavaliers, the most consecutive meetings by two teams in sports history. So, Robin, this, of course, begs the question, do you want to see this matchup again?
Yes. Look, I get it. You know, the fatigue, Warriors, Cavs, and also that it feels inevitable the Warriors are going to win.
Right.
But I would have said that about the Warriors against any team. There is something compelling about the best player of all time as a massive underdog with nothing to lose, to just see what he is capable of. How much can he take off of the Golden State Warriors? I think there's a legitimate chance LeBron James wins the Finals MVP in a loss. And if he's going to go down, we know he's going to go down in a blaze of glory. Plus, just the possibility until it tips off of saying, what if somehow, some way, he and they are able to do it?
Well, the Rockets, we didn't give them a chance, and they really almost did it there. And if it weren't for the loss of Chris Paul, you could argue that that made the difference there for them. I always want to see LeBron, so I'm very happy that he's made it this far. And for the sake of next year, let's just say, if it were the Rockets there and LeBron beat the Rockets or lost to the Rockets, there would probably be very little chance that he would end up in Houston. And now if we're building up a storyline for next year, Houston is heartbroken. They almost made it. They were right there. They need one little piece. Maybe LeBron's that guy. We've been hearing talk about him all season going there. So I am very excited to see what LeBron can do with his old and broken pieces around him against the greatest team ever.
I'll wait for him to lose or for the offseason for that. Meanwhile, I'm trying to talk myself into it. The Warriors have everything to lose here. Iguodala, what's his health status? Do they have somebody to guard LeBron? I'm trying to figure out a way that the Cavs can at least take a game or two.
Right. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it all week long. Like we said, the Rockets were right there. They took arguably the best team ever to 7 games, but they couldn't put the Warriors away as Houston All-Star Chris Paul watched helplessly from the bench out with that injured hamstring. And for Eric Gordon and the Rockets, that makes this loss extra heartbreaking.
It's definitely tough because when everybody counted us out before the series started, we knew we had a chip on our shoulder to win this series. And it sucks because you could win this series if we just had one more playmaker, just than Chris. If he was out there, we would have been playing on Thursday.
John Starks, our NBA analyst, is back with us. John, you just heard from Eric Gordon there. Do you think Chris Paul would have made the difference here?
Yeah and no. I think experience was the key to Golden State pulling this off in Game 7. They've been there before. Obviously, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, and they've been terrific in that third quarter coming out like champions supposed to come out. Yeah, the game probably been close, but it seemed like the Warriors was more determined to win that game than the Rockets was.
But throughout the series, that determination has come from Chris Paul. He's the guy who has made sure they didn't let go of the rope. And last night, when they're missing all those threes, people are saying, do something else. Well, something else was over on the bench, right? Chris Paul is the other guy with the ability to make something happen, score in between, set other guys up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, but something about Golden State. And when you're playing against the champions, you have to be able to take them out. And I don't think the Rockets did a great job, especially coming out in third quarter. You knew what Golden State was going to do. Like they talked about, we can make up 11 points in 2 minutes. That's their mentality. So I don't think the Rockets came out with that same attitude that they had in the first quarter where they was attacking. James Harden was attacking the basket, creating and making the shots a lot easier for his teammates. And he came out, started selling, then it just snowball effect. You 0 for 27 or something like that and doing that stretch. It was bad.
See, I think the series ended the second Chris Paul reached for the back of his leg. But you mentioned the third quarter there. Curry explodes in the third, Durant in the fourth. It's a conversation we've been having, but what do you think makes the Warriors more effective, when Curry has the reins or when Durant does?
I think when Curry has the range. I think when he has the reins, I think when he's going off, because he does so much. He drives to the basket. He don't settle for threes as much as he used to. He drives to the basket. He create. He do all the little things. Durant, you're going to give him the ball and just say, go score. And that's what he's going to do. And so I think Curry's a little bit better in that aspect, but Durant is no slouch.
Well, Curry makes everybody else live,
Yes.
right? And Durant's sort of the break glass in case of emergency.
Exactly.
He's the guy that can get a bucket in any situation.
Exactly. I agree with you 100% on that. He's special in that way, and he's going to be special in this series coming up against Cleveland. So, and then you forget about Klay Thompson. Everybody seems to forget about Klay Thompson. He kept him in there when he got in foul trouble in the first couple of minutes of the game. Then he comes off the bench, just like he did in game number 6. He kept the game close.
Yeah, I think his foul trouble actually gave the Rockets the advantage early in the game. Because if you forget about Klay Thompson, he'll make you remember real quick.
Exactly.
Well, and we talk about how cold the Rockets were from 3 in this game, and James Harden, 30% from 3 this whole series. We know he came into the playoffs with a reputation of not performing well in the playoffs. In this series, 19 of 78 from 3. Does his performance change your opinion of that narrative, or does it reinforce it?
It's tough to say with him. You know, he had some bad games in this series, obviously, and for him, I didn't expect in Game 7 that he was going to perform the way he performed. He actually performed very well, I thought, you know, knowing that the pressure was on him to carry the team, obviously, when Chris Paul was out. So I thought he did an admirable job in doing something like that. But 19 for 78.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the Rockets, it's hard for me to overly criticize anyone because they had the Warriors on the brink, right? You know, D'Antoni had a team playing tough. Harden was there in the mix, and they lost Chris Paul. But I think the truth with James Harden is he's just a notch below some of those other guys. There's LeBron James, and then there's Curry and Durant, and then there's Harden, and there's no shame in that. But I trust Chris Paul more in those spots than I do James Harden, and that's, you know, part of the problem with the MVP being given away in June, late June. It might look a little weird when Harden's getting it.
I agree with you 100%. I always talk about Westbrook, and he's not thrown in the conversation. Obviously, he backed it up this year with another triple-double year. So, and LeBron, and then you talk about Anthony Davis and all these guys. Yeah, somebody's going to question a little bit just because his performance in the playoffs, especially during this series right here, may question the MVP status. But obviously, the MVP is given over the course of a season, the regular season. So, you know,
Well, he and his team got to worry about the offseason. Now,
exactly.
what should the Rockets do? I mean, when Paul's out, they lack a playmaker. Is it as simple as full court press for LeBron, or is there something else they can do?
Well, obviously, you try to enhance what you have right now. And like D'Antoni talked about last night, is that he feels like that they're close. Obviously, they know that they're chasing the Golden State Warriors, and he's going to try to bring in some players. You know, obviously everybody's going to be looking at LeBron and see what he's going to do after this playoff is over with, and the decision will be made.
Now, the other losing team was the Celtics in the East, and after they lost Game 7, Brad Stevens was talking about LeBron and said his goal was to make him work as much as possible, get him as tired as possible, and he said it's a joke he was still able to do what he did. But you actually thought there was more the Celtics could have done to combat LeBron in Game 7.
I don't think he did enough. I really don't. I think his game plan was flawed. I don't think that after that first quarter, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I say, LeBron going 48. You can see it in him. They started walking the ball up the court, and that's playing right into LeBron's hands. You know what I mean? I get a chance to rest and not run as much. His whole attitude is he should have cut his thoroughbreds loose. You talking about Brown, you talking about Tatum, you talking about Rozier. At times, Rozier was pushing the ball, but everybody else was walking, and he didn't have anywhere to go. And so I'm not sure if that was a coaching decision or this guys was tired, but these guys, I just thought he should have pushed the ball as much as possible and tire LeBron out, and they would have had a better chance of beating him. And plus, give his guys the freedom to go out there and play the way they're capable of playing. I thought those guys played very tight, and as a coach, you can't do that. Let those thoroughbreds go. Tatum played loose, Brown played tight, Rozier played tight, Smart played tight. All these guys played tight. And I thought he did a horrible job, to be honest with you. As great of a coach as he is and what he did, he's kind of showed his youth, too, as far as being in that situation there.
All right, well, the future is certainly bright there in Boston. Talking about the offseason there, like you said, those 3 young stars looked amazing, but Brad Stevens has his 2 All-Stars coming back next year. Marcus Smart about to be a restricted free agent. Do you think Danny Ainge should make a move here with any of these pieces?
They set. you look at what they accomplished this year from the standpoint is that they lost Kyrie Irving, obviously at the end of the season, then being without Hayward for the full season. Now you get those 2 guys back in the mix. This team is set, because the game, as we all know, has changed to an outside-inside game. And you're talking about 2 of the best players in the league, and Gordon Hayward, which he has proven himself being one of the best players in the league, and Kyrie Irving. You get those 2 guys back, then you have Rozier, then you have Tatum.
It looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
A lot to look forward.
Nobody's crying over Boston.
A lot to look forward to. It'll be fun to watch
Boston.
them for next year. Let's talk about the finals game one that we do have. The point spread is 12. This is tied for the 2nd largest ever. The Cavs are the biggest underdog in the last 16 years. Do you think they have a shot against?
Rightfully so.
Against Golden State Warriors?
They have a punch of chance. Obviously, whenever you got LeBron James, you got a chance to do some great things. It's going to be tough, because you have 2 pit bulls, and what I mean 2 pit bulls that's chasing LeBron and his championships, and that's Curry as well as Durant. And those guys, and Durant know he can move one closer to LeBron, and Curry know he can tie LeBron. And so I don't see it. I don't see it.
If you're trying to rationalize it,
yeah.
how do you get there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
that's where you kind of the game you have to play. Is it, Iguodala, if he's hurt, do they have anybody to stop LeBron, or does Durant have to work too hard on defense? And then you start talking yourself into Jeff Green. Hey, they didn't have Jeff Green to guard Durant last year.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I think that, and the good thing about Love going out, obviously, it gave Jeff Green an opportunity to and do what he did in the last 2 ball games. Then you have 2 guys over there, Nance as well as Clarkson, who came from LA, who's used to playing against the Golden State Warriors. So those 2 guys won't be afraid. But Golden State just like they're on a mission right now. I think, this series may go 5, may 6, but I don't see Cleveland. I think LeBron, though, I think at the end of the game, and you listen to his interview on the podium, and he talked about, it's not about my win percentage in the finals and what have you. And so I think in the back of his mind, he knows. Hey, he didn't want to see Golden State come out that series. He had a better chance against Houston than he did Golden State.
No doubt about it, but we can hope, right? John Starks, our NBA analyst. The Vegas Golden Knights won Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final 6-4 over the Capitals. Now, we keep hearing this is the best story in sports, but are people paying enough attention to it?
That's a great question. I always say NHL playoffs are one of the most exciting events in sports. That and March Madness, to me, are the most high-stakes, most thrilling events in sports. And last night, of course, I had the 2 screens out, but which one was I paying attention to? Which one had the audio on? It was the NBA playoffs. So yes, this is very exciting, and I'm glad that the next game's not going to compete with an NBA game, but my eyes on the NBA.
Yeah, I think people saying it's the best story in sports are paying a little bit of lip service because they're not necessarily following it up with their interest. And perhaps that's the lack of star power on that team. There's not this one person you're gravitating towards. Maybe if they keep going all the way, maybe when they're right there and they're going to seal it up, it brings people in, and it probably has brought some people in, but I don't think it's quite what the story is saying.
Well, yeah, and I think the storyline of the best expansion franchise in sports history versus Alex Ovechkin, is he finally going to get his first? I think that could potentially be the star power there, this exciting story of a new team versus this guy, and is he going to get one? To me, I'm excited to see that, but I don't really want to have to pick between the NBA, between LeBron and Alex Ovechkin. Like, no offense, Alex Ovechkin, but I'm going to be watching.
Schedule it on NBA off days.
Exactly. I think that would make perfect sense, and then everyone's happy and nobody has to worry about that. Now, over in the NFL, the 49ers defensive end Cassius Marsh hated his time being on the Pats. He even contemplated retiring during his stint with the team because they, quote, don't have fun there. Okay. We're seeing more and more of these types of statements coming out, especially with Tom Brady not going to voluntary OTA. So if you're there to win championships, trusting Belichick's process, Robin, do you really need to have fun?
Well, it depends on who you are, right? I mean, for some people, a championship is the end-all, be-all. And for a guy like Tom Brady, he's going to be judged on championships. But there are plenty of other guys who won't. And it sort of reminds me of the idea that just having money will make you happy, right? That isn't always the case. And a championship doesn't have to make you happy if you're not having fun in the process. This is still your life. This is still your profession. So I understand if it's miserable, even though you're winning, the winning might not cure all.
Well, I think that it does depend on the person, but this is like one of those things where we're like, do you have to always have fun at work? It's a luxury if your work and your fun is the same kind of thing. But it's kind of a millennial attitude, right? Like, my job needs to be more fun.
But you want your job to be fun. I mean, like, I'm not going to be mad at somebody for wanting their job to be fun.
I agree, but I will also say for someone like Tom Brady, I think that winning is probably really fun for him. He probably really enjoys the discipline.
Then why wasn't he at OTAs?
That's a good question, Robin. We'll have to find out. We now welcome in Planet Football's Luis Miguel Echegaray to go over the Champions League final and Real Madrid's 3-1 win over Liverpool. So, Luis, we saw Mo Salah knocked out of this one with an injury, a quiet match there from Cristiano Ronaldo. So, do you think with these stars maybe not performing at the highest level, this match doesn't live up to the hype?
No, it lived up to the hype. I mean, before the game began, one of my main things was to remind everybody that this is Real Madrid with a star-studded team against Liverpool, a really inspirational team with people like Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino. So this really lived up to expectation, as we're going to obviously discuss now.
Yeah, I think the big talking point after was Sergio Ramos and what happened there with Salah, bringing him down. It looked to me, to be honest, like he deliberately wrapped his arm in an attempt to possibly injure him going down to the ground. Was the anger directed towards him justified afterwards?
Oh, Robin, Sergio Ramos. Sergio Ramos is Sergio Ramos. We know what he does. He has basically created this personality on the pitch, both for Spain and Real Madrid. He's known for dirty tricks. I will say, though, that this wasn't that. I really don't think so. I think that when they really did lock arms, and he's a very physical center back. There was another altercation, with the elbow and Karius, but I need to look at that again because I do believe that maybe he was pushed by Van Dijk. But he has basically created this image of who he is. So everything he does will be microscopically looked at.
But I wasn't watching with that in mind. Of course, I know about it a little bit, and it looked a bit like an MMA move at the end. I understand, like, you sort of can get your arms wrapped, and then it could be a total accident. But maybe after the first accidental interlocking, you don't think there was any thought in his mind?
Well, I mean, the Egyptian FA definitely thinks so. That's why they're, like, suing them. But to me, listen, here's the situation. Yes, I don't think it was the cleanest of things, but I think it's very easy to commentate after the fact. I think in the moment, fighting for that full 50-50, Sergio Ramos was just looking. He wasn't thinking in his head, I'm going to break this guy's arm. I really don't think so. I know that there are people that are going to disagree with me, but I really do think that it was just a situation where both players were looking for the ball, and that happened.
Now, of course, the implications could go to the World Cup. Salah supposedly on track to play after being diagnosed with sprained shoulder ligaments. How does this affect his World Cup run?
Well, he's off to Spain as we speak to see what he can do in terms of his shoulder. As you said, it will have implications when it comes to the team. Hector Cooper, Egypt's coach, obviously, depends heavily on the star player. I do think it's going to obviously alter the team if it happens, but hopefully he will be fine. If anything, if Egypt can at least, get out of the group, which is very possible, because it's really Uruguay that I really see the team that might, challenge to win that group. Aside from that, I don't think Saudi Arabia or even Russia will do anything. I think that hopefully he'll be ready for at least the knockout stages.
Yeah, we're certainly all hoping to see him back at the World Cup. Wishing him a good recovery there. Let's talk about Gareth Bale. That goal.
Let's talk about Gareth Bale.
Let's talk about it. We could talk about that goal all
Man
day long.
bun on man bun crime was that goal.
One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, that bicycle kick.
Yeah.
Do you think that he will stay with Madrid?
It's a good question. I think that you need to really follow Zidane's careful words after the match in his press conference. He said Zidane's goal was beautiful. In my opinion, it rivals Zidane's very own goal when he did it in the Champions League final. But he said, listen, he's an extremely talented player, but we have a lot of extremely talented players. And no matter what happens, my ideology, my philosophy on whether he starts for this team is still down to me. And let's remember something. He came on as a super sub. Would he have had the same impact had he started? We have to believe in the faith. If you're a Real Madrid fan, we have to believe in the faith of Zinedine Zidane. I think that he has now great leverage to move on somewhere else and say, I can be a star somewhere else and really have regular team soccer in another team. So we'll see what happens, but I think he has leverage to move somewhere else.
Well, let's switch gears a little to the U.S. men's national team. They just beat Bolivia in an international friendly. We saw several young prospects making their Team USA debut. A lot of praise for interim coach Dave Sarachan there after that game about his tactical decisions. How do you think the team's search for the next head coach will impact this young group's development?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, let's take a little bit of context in this game yesterday. I mean, this is a Bolivia team that is also pressing the reset button. They were second to bottom in trying to qualify for the World Cup. They conceded the most goals in the South American qualifiers. They only won 4 games, which is outstandingly bad because they rely on their altitude when they play. So they're also like a team in transition. Having said all that, that was a great performance from the U.S. Not so much because of the opposition, because there really was no opposition, but the fact that this was a young, hungry team willing to give it their all. So the next coach needs to be somebody that emphasizes that hunger. It needs to be somebody that not only understands tactically what the U.S. needs to do, but somebody that encourages the energy and the hunger of this young U.S. team.
So that's looking forward to the future of U.S. soccer. We look forward to the World Cup and back on the Champions League. Meanwhile, it was a big day for booze in the Bronx Monday, but Justin Verlander soaked them in, giving a hat tip to Yankees fans after he kept his major league leading ERA intact, pitching the Astros past the Yanks 5-1. I guess they don't call it a Bronx cheer for nothing.
I mean, if they're going to boo their own guy, Giancarlo Stanton, this is what you expect in New York, right?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, they're going to boo Stanton, they're going to boo Verlander, definitely. Yeah. So I really had no doubt that was going to happen. But he loves it, right? He loves the booing. It kind of feeds him. So
it's almost mutual respect at that point, right?
Exactly, exactly.
I love that Verlander just owned it. And, of course, the fact that he had such a great game, it didn't hurt there that the New York fans were not happy about that. Joel Embiid, his NBA season may be over, but he is still continuing to give us some fantastic highlights on the court. Embiid's been playing around on outdoor courts around Philly and taking on whoever wants to look silly. So I don't know if you saw this over the weekend, that off-the-face pass to the windmill dunk. Oh, here we go. We got it. This is so good. How would you like to be this guy?
I love Joel Embiid so much, and this is just another reason. He doesn't care. He loves to play, whether it's basketball, obviously his main sport, but he loves soccer too. Like, I would love to be that kid. But I like the idea that at the beginning of this video, he thought that he could take him on, right?
You know, this is the problem. It's not about Embiid. It's about if you show up to play and Embiid shows up, do you go, all right, I want to be a part of this. I want to play against Joel Embiid, or do you think about the memes? Do you think about, the viral videos and go, I'll sit this one out. I got next. I'll wait for Embiid, to take a rest.
Let's remember what Andy Warhol said. Everybody wants their 15 minutes, and if Joel Embiid shows up, you just want to.
It doesn't matter how you get your 15 minutes.
No, just get it.
And if I'm getting a bloody nose or going to work with a black eye, that is a badge of honor for me to say, Joel Embiid.
It's not about the black eye or the bloody nose. It's about the complete embarrassment and total humiliation.
I'll do it if it's Joel Embiid.
For that
but
moment,
if it's like my buddy and he does that to me, then I don't want that scene. But if it's Joel Embiid, make it happen.
I'm with you on this one. So funny.
I don't know about that process. We'll be back with more tomorrow, same time and same place. In the meantime, check out @SI Now Live on Twitter for the latest videos and upsets. Cavs. Go Cavs.
Go Cavs.